Welcome to our video on the top 20 JavaScript interview questions. Whether you're prepping for your first technical interview or just brushing up on the fundamentals, we've got you covered. We're diving deep into some of the most common questions that come up in JavaScript interviews. This is your one-stop shop to really understand these concepts, not just memorize the answers. So, first up, let's tackle the basics. What exactly JavaScript? In a nutshell, it's the language that makes the web dynamic and interactive. Without JavaScript, websites would be pretty static, like digital brochures. But JavaScript brings them to life. Think about things like interactive maps, animated graphics, those infinite scrolling feeds you can get lost in for hours. That's all JavaScript. It's everywhere on the web. Now, let's talk data types. In JavaScript, data types are the building blocks of your code. They tell the JavaScript engine how you intend to use a piece of data. You've got your primitives like strings for text, numbers for, you guessed it, numbers, booleans for true or false values, and then things get a little more complex with objects, which can store collections of data. And then you've got the special ones, null, which represents the intentional absence of a value, and undefined, which means a variable has been declared but hasn't been given a value yet. We've also got symbols, a newer addition for creating unique identifiers, and bigint, which lets you work with really large numbers. Hoisting is one of those JavaScript quirks that can trip you up if you're not careful. Imagine JavaScript taking all your variable and function declarations and moving them to the top of their scope before running your code. That's hoisting in a nutshell. It means you can actually use a variable in your code before its declaration appears, which might seem a bit counterintuitive. Keep in mind, though, only the declarations are hoisted, not the initializations. This is a classic interview question, and for good reason. Understanding the difference between null and undefined really demonstrates a grasp of JavaScript's nuances. Think of null as a value you explicitly assign, like saying, hey, this variable exists, but it doesn't hold any value right now. Undefined, on the other hand, means the variable has been declared but hasn't been assigned anything, not even null. It's like the variable is just hanging out there, waiting for its purpose in life. Closures are one of JavaScript's more powerful features, but they can be a bit hard to wrap your head around at first. In essence, a closure is like a function with a little backpack full of memories. Even after the outer function has finished running, the inner function still has access to the variables in its surrounding scope. It's like the inner function carries a piece of its birthplace with it wherever it goes. Callbacks are everywhere in JavaScript. They're at the heart of how JavaScript handles asynchronous operations. Essentially, a callback function is a function you pass as an argument to another function. The cool part is that this other function can then call your callback function at some point in the future, like when an event happens or a task is completed. This is super useful for things like handling user interactions or making API calls. Promises are a more modern way to deal with asynchronous operations in JavaScript. Think about it like this. A promise represents a value that might not be available right now but will be at some point in the future. It's like a promise from a friend. You don't know if they'll keep it yet, but you can decide what to do once they do, or if they break your heart and reject it. Promises help you avoid something called callback hell and make your asynchronous code cleaner. The function is your go-to for delaying the execution of code. It takes two main arguments, a function you want to execute and a time delay in milliseconds. Is super handy for things like creating animations, delaying actions, or even building simple timers. Async, await, is like syntactic sugar for working with promises, making your asynchronous code look and feel more synchronous. You use the keyword before a function declaration to mark it as asynchronous. Then, inside an async function, you can use the keyword before a promise-based function. This tells JavaScript to pause execution until the promise is resolved and then continue with the rest of the code. Let's see an example of an asynchronous function in action. Imagine you're fetching data from an API using the function returns a promise. Using async/await, you'd write something like then. This makes your code super readable and avoids nested callbacks. This is another one of those JavaScript gotchas that can trip up even experienced developers. The double equals == operator performs type coercion, which means it tries to convert the operands to the same type before comparing. The triple equals == operator, on the other hand, checks for both value and type equality without any type conversion. It's generally considered best practice to use the strict equality == operator to avoid unexpected results. The ternary operator is like a shorthand for writing simple if-else statements. It takes three operands: a condition, an expression to execute if the condition is true, and an expression to execute if the condition is false. It's a great way to make your code more concise and readable, especially for simple conditional assignments. The this keyword in JavaScript is a bit of a chameleon. Its value depends on how a function is called. In general, this refers to the object that's currently executing the function. However, there are a few rules to keep in mind, especially when dealing with different function invocation patterns, like methods, constructors, and regular function calls. The method is your go-to for transforming arrays. It iterates over each element of an array and applies a callback function to each element, returning a new array with the transformed values. For example, you could use to double every number in an array, extract the names from an array of objects, or even create a new array of DOM elements from an array of data. The method is like a gatekeeper for your arrays. It creates a new array with all the elements that pass a certain condition. You provide a callback function that returns true for elements you want to keep and false for elements you want to filter out. It's a clean and efficient way to select specific elements from an array based on your criteria. The method is like the Swiss Army knife of array methods. It's super versatile and can be used for a wide range of tasks. Essentially, iterates over an array and reduces it to a single value. You provide a callback function called a reducer that takes two arguments, an accumulator and the current element. The accumulator stores the intermediate result of the reduction, and the reducer function updates the accumulator based on the current element. The event loop is the heart of how JavaScript handles asynchronous operations. It's a continuous loop that checks if the call stack is empty. If it is, it takes the oldest event from the event queue and pushes it onto the call stack for execution. This mechanism allows JavaScript to handle multiple tasks concurrently without blocking. Decorators are a bit like adding superpowers to your JavaScript classes, methods, or properties. They allow you to modify the behavior of a class or its members without directly modifying their code. Decorators are essentially functions that wrap around the decorated element, providing a way to add functionality or metadata. And are both great options for storing data in the browser, but they serve different purposes, is like long-term memory. Data stored in persists even after the browser window is closed, making it suitable for storing user preferences or application state that needs to be remembered across sessions. On the other hand, is like short-term memory. Data stored in is only available for the duration of the page session. Once the tab or window is closed, the data is gone. Performance is key for delivering a smooth user experience, especially on the web. There are a ton of techniques you can use to optimize your JavaScript code. One important area is minimizing DOM access, as interacting with the DOM can be expensive. Other techniques include using efficient looping constructs, avoiding unnecessary work, caching results, and making sure to clean up after yourself to prevent memory leaks. By optimizing your JavaScript code, you can make your web applications faster, more responsive, and more enjoyable for your users. So, there you have it, a breakdown of 20 of the most common JavaScript interview questions. I hope this helps you feel more confident and prepared for your next interview. Remember, practice makes perfect, so keep coding and experimenting. And don't forget to check out the resources in the description for even more in-depth information. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more tech content just like this. Good luck with your interviews, and I'll catch you in the next one.